easily the figure goes to not 25 million, 250 million. Easily. These are all Muslims living amongst non-Muslims. Whoever claims that hijrah is obligatory, really, I don't know how to respond to this. What are you going to say to 250 million people? Okay, forget their situation. How about us here? The Western Muslim situation. 25 million Muslims. Where do you expect them to go? Which country, which utopia will absorb them and allow for them and their children and their families to live good and healthy lives? Who is going to accept them? And realize, if this is an impractical point, then the Sharia takes impracticability and impossibility into account. I said I'm going to talk about it from a Shari'i point of view and a practical point of view. The reality is the Shari'i point of view takes into account the logistics of a situation. The Sharia is not a theoretical doctrine. It looks at the situation we're living in. Therefore, even if somebody concludes that theoretically hijrah is obligatory, theoretically, when it comes to the realistics, when it comes to applying it, everybody must realize that the Muslims are here to stay. They're not going to go anywhere. So once we come to this conclusion that we are here, we're going to remain here. In England alone, there are millions of Muslims. They're not going to go anywhere. Even if they could, even if they wanted to, there would be no place they would all be able to go to. So the reality is, the majority, the bulk of Muslims will remain here, and this is something from a Shari'i perspective there is no problem with. So this is the first issue. And I believe one of the most important ones, because we have to get over this identity crisis. We have to feel comfortable living in the lands we're living. We have to feel, yes, okay, I am a product of this land, and I'm also a product of my culture and my civilization, my religion. I'm a healthy mix between the two. We should be able to get to this conclusion before we move to the second point. The second point and the second issue, once we've come to the Shari'i permissibility of Muslims living in non-Muslim lands and the undeniable practical reality that whatever our theoretical view is, Muslims will remain in Western lands. The second question is, what is our goal as a community? What is our final result that we're aiming for when we're living here? Do we wish to establish a khilafah where we live? Do we wish to turn America and England into Islamic republics and states? Or do we wish to convert the entire population? Or do we just want to practice our Islam and live and let live? Let us be Muslims and you can be whatever you want to be. In order to answer this question, the question of what is our goal as a community, I believe that it is very relevant to look at the situation of the Muslims in Abyssinia. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sent a group of Muslims to Abyssinia, they were in Mecca, the most holiest of all lands, but they were forced to commit shirk. They could not practice tawheed. And so the Prophet ﷺ allowed them to move to Abyssinia. Over 100 Muslims, that is a significant amount. More than half the Muslim population of the world at that time emigrated to Abyssinia. Over 100 Muslims emigrated to Abyssinia, and this occurred probably around 7 years before the hijrah to Medina. And they lived there, and they had children there, and they married there, and they divorced there. And they remained there until the Battle of Khaybar, in the 7th year of the hijrah. In other words, they remained there for more than a decade. For more than a decade. An Islamic state has been established. Medina is up and running. And the laws have begun to be revealed. The republic that is now established in Medina is functioning. The laws of Islam are up and running now. The state is being established. There is a community of Sahaba living amongst non-Muslim lands in Abyssinia. What did the Prophet ﷺ direct them to do? Did he write them hidden messages that they should plot and plan to overthrow the Najashi, or to take over Abyssinia, or to establish a khilafah there? No, not at all. Rather, when the Meccans came to try to extradite them back to Mecca, they argued in front of Najashi. They took it to the Supreme Court of their country. But what did they argue? They argued in front of Najashi, let us be Muslims, that's all. We have come because we want to practice Islam. And we know that you are a just ruler who will not interfere in our lives. So the thing that they argued for in a non-Muslim arena, a court of Najashi, was that we have come here because we were persecuted back home. And we have come here seeking to lift this persecution and being free to practice Islam as we see fit. The laws of Abyssinia were non-Muslim laws. Even though Najashi had converted, the entire state was still functioning upon the laws of the previous lands, the previous emperors. And yet that did not prevent the Muslims, not just from living there, but from realizing and recognizing that if they wanted their rights, they had to fight it in their courts, the courts of Abyssinia. And if they wanted to live there, their goal could not be, "Oh Najashi, our goal is to execute you and sit in your place." That's not going to be realistic. Their goal was, let us worship Allah. Let us be here and allow us to be free in our daily lives as Muslims. So brothers and sisters, our goal then, our ultimate goal, living in these lands, is to secure the freedom to be Muslim in our daily lives. To secure the freedom to practice Islam as I see fit in our daily lives. And to pass that down to our children and their children after them. This should be our goal. Our goal is to remain Muslim and to practice Islam without infringement of government. And the reality is this is a very, very practical goal. It's a realistic goal. It is a goal that theoretically secular democracies should give to you. And for the most part, they are giving to us. For the most part, compared to many other countries, they are giving this to us. Now, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I am not claiming that the establishment of a khilafah and that wanting a khilafah has nothing to do with our religion. No, I am not claiming that. What I am claiming, as Western Muslims living in Western lands, this cannot be our goal. It cannot be our battle. We, living here, cannot want to establish a khilafah living in these lands. Nor can we aim for it or publicize it. Because what do you think is going to happen? What is the reality of the situation when we stand up and we say, not only do I want to avoid alcohol and avoid women and avoid drugs and avoid this and that, I'm going to force my way of life on you. I'm going to prevent you from practicing what you want to do. We talk to the majority out here like this. What do you think is going to happen? We will lose our Islam. We won't be allowed to live here as Muslims, us and our children after us. And our civil rights will be stripped away more and more and more. So I claim that no doubt khilafah is a part of Islam. And it must be used and strive for when the situation is right. But it is not something that we as Western Muslims should make our goal and our priority. It is important to be pragmatic and realistic about this and the repercussions of wanting something of this nature. So no doubt, khilafah is a part of Islam, but let those Muslims who are battling for it in Kashmir, in Pakistan, in Egypt, and other countries, let them do it in their Muslim lands. As for us, when we're surrounded by non-Muslims, and we are in all honesty at their mercy in some sense, we cannot make it our goal, just like it was not the goal of the Muslims in Abyssinia, even though there was an up and running Islamic Khilafah, there was an up and running Islamic empire, which is that of Medina. Still, the Prophet ﷺ did not tell them to do anything more than practice Islam in their daily lives. Okay, if it's not our goal, in my opinion at least, to establish a Khilafah, how about converting the public masses? I state that while we should not make this our goal, it should be our desire. And there's a difference between the two. While we don't make it a goal, it is a desire. Because if we make it our goal, this has a number of implications. Firstly, we are claiming that if we don't do this, then we are falling short of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reality is, and I know many of us have heard contrary, and we can ask some more details in the Q&A. The reality is, da'wah is fard kifaya. Calling to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is an obligation that is upon the community as a whole, and not upon individuals. If a Muslim lives his or her life practicing Islam properly, praying 5 times a day, avoiding the major sins, worshipping Allah, but without giving da'wah, will that person enter Jannah?